Welcome into Northside Territory, Foul Territory Network's Cubs podcast. I'm Sahadev Sharma with my partner, Patrick Mooney. We are your Cubs beat writers over at
We are.
uh, Patrick. This is going to be a bullpen-centric episode. Bullpens are such a fickle unit in baseball, and they are often, where the criticism goes. One bad game, and it'll lead to a ton of criticism. But it's not just one bad game. There's been moments and plenty of reason for consternation among the fan base. I think it's starting to look better. We can discuss all these different aspects. I think the reality is the Cubs are continually trying to find the right mix. They keep making moves. The latest is the transaction wire says that Jordan Wicks has been sent down, and we know that the Cubs have traded for Drew Pomeranz. We'll see when he's up with the team, but the Cubs are continuing to cycle through bullpen arms. This isn't they're not, standing still right now.
Sense of urgency was the theme of our last show, and I think you continue to see it here from Luke Little being a one and done out of this bullpen. Jordan Wicks, not getting the job done and getting sent back to Iowa. And Pomeranz, it's a long shot, right? The guy hasn't pitched in the majors since 2021, but he was awesome when Craig Counsell had him for the Brewers. And that was in, a trade deadline move that was not earth shattering. He was not pitching well as a starter at that time. And once again, the Brewers found a way to do more with less and extract something out of a pitcher who, sort of looked, a little washed up at that point. And he pitches so well for the Brewers. He gets this huge contract with the Padres. Does not stay healthy for most of it, but when he does pitch, he's awesome. And I don't know, it's not crazy to think they could catch lightning in a bottle again with Drew Pomeranz here, just given their history, the way they kind of cycle through those, middle inning relievers and kind of see what happens. I think we're expecting Pomeranz to be at Wrigley Field at some point this week. We'll kind of see how that goes, but I think you see Jed Hoyer's front office, Craig Counsell's coaching staff just being aggressive and showing their patience is not unlimited.
Yeah, and I think what you're talking about with lightning in a bottle, that happens so frequently with relievers, and this is just the reality of bullpens. We saw it last year with Tyson Miller. He was DFA'd, and you add him to your bullpen. Yeah, by the Mariners. The Cubs made a small trade for him. It seemed like a nothing move, and it really stabilized the bullpen for a period of time, right? The bullpen was not a strength last year. It was much better for portions of the season. Ultimately, for how long it struggled and the key pieces that did struggle kind of sunk their season right along with the slumping of the offense. But you're not going to at this point in time, you're not going to get this massive upgrade unless you have that massive upgrade like in the minors or something, right? So you have to kind of hope that you can catch lightning in a bottle if you need like a significant upgrade, right? And I think right now what I'm seeing is they are starting to kind of find pieces, right? Like guys are settling into different roles. Guys are stepping up. I think what you need let's talk about Friday, right? Because Friday, first of all, that was just one of those. Yeah, that's one of those games that you cover, and you're like, what is happening right now, right? And not even there was the David Bodie game where that one sends your heart racing because it was just like, whoo, that was amazing. This was just more like, come on, is this really happening right now? This is a little silly. It was absolutely fun to cover, and it's easier to go in a clubhouse when when you're covering the team that won that sort of game. That, you know, it's a fun atmosphere and all that, but it's really an odd game, and it's hard to take away too much from it. Here's one thing I will take away from it. When you have a 7-1 lead, I don't care who you have warming up in the bullpen. Like once you get that 7-1 lead, you bring in a lesser reliever, right? If that lesser, when I say lesser reliever, that's not an indictment on Jordan Wicks. It's just his where he is in the pecking order right now, right? He's probably the last guy in that bullpen, as indicated by the fact that he was just sent down, right?
Yeah.
And he couldn't get the job done. Like that's not that doesn't instill a lot of confidence in the guy. Listen, that's a really tough offense. Still, you got to get a couple outs there. You got to avoid using Porter Hodge. Like the idea in that situation is you're trying to get 2 innings out of Jordan Wicks, save your in theory Hodge and Presley, your setup guy and your closer, right? And keep them fresh for Saturday or Sunday, right? Whatever it may be. And Wicks was completely unable to do that. It turned so quickly. I don't think there's any reason to bring Hodge in that game when it's 7-1. But once the bases are loaded, no outs,
Yeah.
kind of have to, your hand is forced, right? I also don't think that's not a game where I look and say like, oh, the bullpen is a disaster. That was set up by Wicks. Hodge is allowed to have a bad game. He picked the absolute worst time, right? Like to hang a meatball. I mean, like it was but unless that becomes a trend, which we hadn't seen it before. He had a 5-pitch quick 1-2-3 outing on Sunday. I'm not concerned about Porter Hodge. So is Friday a reason for concern for the bullpen? Not in my mind. It really isn't. There are plenty of other reasons that built up concern. But I think you need, like, when you have a big lead, if you can't, like, you need guys that can come in and just clean those up, because those type of outings save the bullpen. That's what keeps your bullpen healthy. That's what keeps them fresh, and not getting a 7-1 victory or whatever it may have been in the end, not getting a blowout victory and having to use your best arms again. That hurts. And that, I think that's how you look at that game. It's an awesome win, fun game to cover. We'll probably be looking back at that as like, you know what? You could be looking back at that if they had lost it as one of those games where it's like September, you look back, remember that game? They should have won that game and they blew it, right? And now they're a game out, or they lost the tiebreaker with Arizona, or whatever it may be, right? Now they have the tiebreaker with Arizona. Now they look like one of the better teams in the National League, and the kind of the narrative around them has shifted because of that game.
Yeah, it's either look at this explosive offense and the team's resiliency to come back, or is it going to be kind of this red flag about a bullpen that, you know, right now is near the bottom of the majors, and the Cubs have covered up some of those issues. And I believe you spoke with Craig Counsell about this. If Presley, Hodge, and Julie and Merriweather are doing well, and if Ethan Roberts looks, you know, somewhat trustworthy, like, where is this bullpen right now? Like, what is, Craig Counsell is never one to show many emotions or any emotions, but I know you spoke with him at Wrigley Field over the weekend. Like, how is he kind of looking at the group as a whole right now?
Yeah, let's talk about that in a moment. Let's take a quick break, and then we can come back and talk about the overall health of the bullpen.
Kratz, do you like spending an hour on grocery shopping?
Nope. Speed up the process, please.
Introducing Hungry Root to the FT fam.
Now we can all be bougie with our own personal shopper to handle the food shopping, including Rex, based on what you're looking to put in your body.
I stack my Hungry Root box with items like gluten-free, dairy-free blueberry waffles for breakfast, shrimp veggie bowls for lunch, and a little filet mignon with potatoes and broccolini for dinner.
You can also say just, hey, Hungry Root, I eat paleo, or I'm vegetarian, and they load up your cart with personalized recommendations.
And those recs keep evolving as they learn about what you're into. Also, no BS, as in no artificial sweeteners or preservatives in any of Hungry Root's food. You're going to love Hungry Root as much as FT does. Take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/FT and use code FT. That's hungryroot.com/FT, code FT to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life.
Well, Patrick, I mean, like, think about last year, right? Think about who was struggling. Alzolay was a mess and then was hurt. Hector Neris just never really settled in, never found his best self. Pretty much that looks like it may have been the end of his run in the majors as a truly effective reliever. Julian Merriweather was never healthy, never looked like himself. Mark Leiter Jr. was really up and down. I felt like maybe he probably was the one of that group that had some bad luck, but the numbers were not there on a consistent basis for him. So, I mean, those coming into the season, those were like expected to be your best relievers. And for the vast majority of the season, they were either hurt or ineffective. That's not the case right now. Porter Hodge, outside of Friday, has been awesome, right? Julian Merriweather looks like he's actually getting better with each outing, I feel like. And then obviously Ryan Presley, a mess at the beginning of the year, never really I don't think he cost them a game, if I'm remembering. There was one game that he was out there, right, with the error. There was the error by Justin Turner.
Justin Turner
That was
first base.
Yeah, that was the only one where he blew the game, right, quote unquote. But it's almost like he settled into it, and now he looks so much better. He looks like a pretty effective reliever, veteran closer, and whether he's the closer the rest of the season or not, that I think he's showing that he can be pretty effective, right? You have Brad Keller stepping up. You have Ethan Roberts stepping up. I think Daniel Palencia, like, I don't want to take too much away from it just yet. He's got to keep doing it because we've seen flashes, but I'll tell you what we haven't seen. We haven't seen him go like back-to-back games like he did and hold the stuff. We haven't seen him go 2 innings and hold the stuff. He looks like a different pitcher right now. Let's see how long that lasts. But that him with Roberts, like that creates some depth, right? Brad Keller looks like, I don't know, man. I'm watching him and I'm just, every single time I see him, I'm like, this guy's kind of awesome. Like, the stuff is nasty. He's hitting 100 miles per hour. He looks like a damn good reliever. That's a lot of relievers that are good to great right now, including who you came into the season with expecting to be your best relievers, and they are. Like, that's huge. Right now, what we're talking about is the last or the final couple spots in the bullpen, right? If Palencia is legit or even close to okay, right? If he can handle coming into a game when it's 5-1 Cubs and keep it to keep it to a 4-run lead, or keep it or only allow a run over 2 innings, even that would be acceptable, right? You need guys that can just keep games in check. Or if you're down 3-2 and Palencia comes in and keeps it that way, right?
Exactly.
Those are the things you're looking for from your 5th, 6th reliever, right? So we'll see who kind of steps up. If it's Drew Pomeranz, if it's Cosgrove, the lefty that they picked up. Thielbar's starting to look a little bit better too, right? Like, if I don't know, like I'm not there yet, just because the command seems to just disappear at times for him. So I feel like this bullpen is coming together. Listen, I'm not going to criticize fans who are on edge about it. I think fans have been burned too much by bullpens. All fans. Listen, fans are just always uneasy about bullpens. Very rarely do you feel great about a bullpen. Maybe if you're a Padres fan right now, you feel great about your bullpen. But it's just, I think, as fans see this a lot and they hold on to the negative. It's so easy to do that, right? Pitching, relief pitchers, it's like one bad inning can really sink, that stays with you, I think, as a fan. as an observer, as media. I think media can do it too. It's not just fans. So it's really easy to just like it's hard, I should say, to shake that negative feeling of a bullpen. So they have to continue to prove themselves. But I think they're headed in the right direction. I'm not saying all is well and all is perfect, but like there's a lot of names that you should feel encouraged about, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a pass-fail job if you're Presley or some of those other guys. And the Cubs enter Tuesday 14-10 in first place while playing the most difficult opening schedule in baseball. Like, they must be doing something right. I think whatever the bullpen looks like now, it's going to look different. Maybe by by Wednesday, by the weekend series against the Phillies. Certainly there's going to be a lot of turnover in May and June. And the goal, Jed Hoyer said, is to get all 8 relievers pitching well at the same time. Very hard to do. But you need those guys, the even or ahead guys, as Joe Madden used to call them, to just put it away when you have the lead and just bank those wins. And you need the kind of guys lower on the pecking order who can give what looks like a very good offense a chance to come back. And so they're going to constantly be cycling these guys out. Like, yes, Luke Little was a disappointment, but it's not just him. And yes, Jordan Wicks has a nice pedigree as a first round guy and who actually really impressed in 2023. I got to say, like, coming up towards the end of that season, he looked really good as a rookie thrown in there. Hasn't gotten back to that place yet, but it's not just them. It's just the organization's mindset right now. It is they have to make the playoffs this year. That is their absolute goal, and they're not going to defer as much to development. They're not going to be quite as patient. And, Colin Ray has been starting recently, but he's a nice piece to kind of connect the pitching staff the way you just described, Sahadev, that if they keep getting good starting pitching, if Tommy Hotovy and the coaching staff can keep kind of game planning and Craig Counsell can keep the big picture in mind, I think that's something that players really, or relievers in particular, appreciate about Counsell, that he either knows how to lose or he knows how to play the odds and the percentages to kind of keep guys healthy over the long term. And look, every contending team ever looks for bullpen help at the trade deadline, right? So that's
Right.
got to be the Cubs' focus here. And, there are some interesting names at Iowa. There is at least, a certain amount of depth that, I don't think there's like a huge drop off from, say, the 8th guy in the bullpen to, maybe your 9th, 10th, and 11th guys on the Iowa. So there are obviously 40-man considerations and contractual issues to work through as well. But, if the Cubs were maybe 10-14 at the moment, I think you could be screaming about the bullpen. I think it's just hard at the start of the season. There's a lot of kind of trial and error going on right here. And the Cubs are more than kind of passing the eye test right now.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying there, like, listen, you don't want what happened last year, where it's continually costing you games, and then you look back and say, yeah, we fixed this, or we stabilized it, or we got it to a good place, but look at these 8 games that it cost us, or whatever, half dozen games that it cost us. You don't want the Cubs to be saying that at the end of the season. And so far they really haven't. Has the bullpen cost them a couple games? Sure. You could say that their offense has stolen them a couple of games, right? And beat up on other teams' bullpens and whatever it may be, right? And taken some games. So like those things tend to even out. You just don't want it to happen like every other day, or you don't want so what happened on Friday, right? You don't want that to continually happen, because what happens then is you're using your guys over and over again, and then come August and September, Porter Hodge isn't as good as he is now because he's exhausted, because he's at whatever 70 innings at the beginning of September instead of at the end of September, right? Or whatever it may be. You just don't want these guys completely gassed. You don't want Ryan Presley overused. You just don't want any of that, right? You need to find ways to get these guys breaks. And that's why games like Friday just cannot be was it fun? 13-11. Cubs offense is awesome and looks like it can win them a lot of games. Great. Rest your bullpen arms. Make sure they're healthy for the stretch run. I think that's really important. Patrick, something I kind of want to touch on that I think is, I don't want to rehash everything that happened in the winter, right? But the Cubs are playing the Dodgers for the final time this week, right?
Mhm.
Incredibly tough schedule. They've done really well. I'm impressed. I'm coming away, impressed so far. They have 5 more games before the brutal stretch ends. I think there's a couple more actually after they play Pittsburgh, and then they have a couple more tough games. It's like Milwaukee and San Francisco, which is turning out to be will be toughish.
Yeah.
So, but still, like this was what we kind of circled as get through this, and we'll see where they are. So far, so good. But with the Dodgers coming into town, Tanner Scott, Kirby Yates, guys that the Cubs would have liked to have on their roster, and the Dodgers just outmuscle them financially. The Cubs. I don't think Jed loves to spend big. I mean, we know that. I don't say I don't. I don't think we
On the
know Jed
pen.
doesn't love to spend big on the pen, right? But that he was willing to be aggressive for Tanner Scott and get out of what we believed was his comfort zone with the reliever is certainly interesting. And they couldn't close that deal, but it's interesting to see them like try and be aggressive and not still not be able to get the guy. That's I think that's telling in 2 different ways. It's telling that Jed, they loved Tanner Scott. They love what he can do.
Yeah.
Jed also sees, it's what we talked about last episode, that this is going to be an aggressive season, that they're under fire. They need to get the job done. And they see that. They saw Tanner Scott as a guy that kind of could have been a huge piece. Imagine, I don't know if they sign Tanner Scott, if they still get Ryan Presley, right?
No, they wouldn't. I think they would not have gone after Presley.
Right.
That's my understanding.
Right. Same. So I think maybe it doesn't completely change the way the bullpen looks, right? Because in theory, adding Presley, you still have that bottom of the bullpen
Correct.
issue,
Yeah.
but also maybe you don't have the hiccups early in the year. I don't know. It's you don't have questions about having a lefty, all these things, right? You have different issues. Thielbar is the second lefty instead of the primary lefty. I don't know if Tanner Scott's closing, maybe Porter Hodge is closing. I don't know what they do. I don't know what the Cubs would do in that situation. But ultimately the Cubs are, you can look at how the Dodgers built their bullpen and how the Cubs built their bullpen. And it's, I think Cubs fans just look at that with envy and say, man, that team doesn't have to stress out about every close game, right? And again, I think eventually Cubs fans will come to believe in this bullpen, but right now they're still on edge, and the fact that they don't outspend the competition to get the job done is going to remain a frustration, I think, with certain fans, and I think that's fair.
Understandably so. Like, has Jed learned his lesson with the bullpen? I think so. I think he definitely. I mean, offering Tanner Scott 4 years and $66 million. I would think he'd be the closer in that scenario over a second-year reliever in Porter Hodge.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like, I don't think that would have led to like 3 more big bullpen moves, or and I think the frustration is, look, Presley's a good pitcher. Like, hard to top his resume in the postseason. It's the why not David Robertson? Now, the baseball industry as a whole and David Robertson do not see eye to eye on value, clearly. Otherwise, I'd assume he'd be pitching somewhere. But it was just kind of the, why not add a little more? Why so far below the CBT threshold? And And look, these relievers are so volatile. I believe Blake Trinan just went down with an injury, and he was part of that Dodgers, you know, rush to just totally rebuild the bullpen. Like Ryan Brazier was a good pitcher. Now maybe he obviously hasn't done much for the Cubs, and he's not very close to coming back from his injury. But like, I do think we've seen a little bit of an evolution of how people look at bullpens. Like, I know the Dodgers have more money seemingly than anyone. Maybe the Mets have more, but if they're willing to spend that much money on their bullpen, it's probably a good way to go about it, right? Like the Dodgers don't make dumb decisions by and large. So if they're willing to pour that much money into their bullpen and spend on older relievers, it probably tells you something about, the efficiency and the usefulness of how to kind of go about it. And obviously they leaned hard on their bullpen last October. And, I think this is something we'll probably get into later this summer of like, it's nice to have, pieces you kind of trust in May against the Pirates, but do the Cubs have like the put away dominant relievers to win in October? And that for the Cubs would be a nice conversation to have, knowing that they made the playoffs. But I think that's the time when you kind of get greedy and, start, do your A relievers match up against the Dodgers A relievers or the Padres A relievers? Like, can they put away some of the best lineups in the game? And thus far, I think they've done a pretty good job. Like, I think it's you have to kind of credit them for getting those results, and we'll see whether they can sustain it. And that's where, Sahadev, I think your point is very well taken of, how Counsell manages this group with the long-term in mind, with the big picture in mind is really important. And I think should show up. We saw it with the Brewers, how they finished and closed so well in those Septembers year after year.
Yeah, ultimately for me, and I think I'm remembering how I was reacting early on in the season. My concern was always Presley.
Yeah.
I needed to see more from him, and I'm starting to see that now. And I believe now that is now that I feel a little bit more confident with him, it really settles the bullpen. It makes me more confident that the bullpen can be good going forward. It was my point earlier in the show that you have your best relievers pitching well. You can figure out that bottom half. You can figure it out. It's not impossible, right? It should also mention that Tyson Miller, I believe, is supposed to pitch in back-to-back games, either Tuesday, Wednesday, or Wednesday, Thursday. I can't remember what Counsell said. In fact, if I'm remembering, Counsell wasn't even 100% sure, but he's pitching in back-to-back soon. And that tells me, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think he may be close to coming back then. If
that's got to be one of the final boxes to check, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, that helps things too, right? That should help you figure out some things. If he's healthy and effective, now you have one more trusted arm. That's pretty big, right? He doesn't need to become the seventh inning guy. If he's just a guy that pitches when the team is down a couple of runs or whatever, trying to hold a big lead or keep a deficit close, one of those things, you'll take that, right? If that's what Tyson Miller is, I think that's a big deal. And then we'll see. Assad is supposed to pitch Tuesday. We'll see when he comes back. So, they're getting healthy too. You mentioned Brazier. I don't think he's close. So,
no.
Yeah. So,
wow. Ways off.
Yeah. So they're starting to get a little healthier there, even though they've lost some guys like Eli Morgan. But yeah, I think it's headed in a better direction, and they're trying to create depth by making moves like Drew Pomeranz. So we'll see where this ends up. I think it's going to continue to evolve. We'll see what guys emerge from the minors, whatever it may be. Bullpen's just going to be a topic of conversation. It always is. And I I think that's with good reason. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for listening. This is Northside Territory, Foul Territory Network's Cubs podcast. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe. Subscribe to the YouTube channel where you can see us. You can see us in our habitats, speaking directly to you. Make sure to subscribe to The Athletic, where Patrick and I will be on top of all things Cubs for the rest of the season and into the winter. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. Take care.